Warning, the following program has been rated T for truth.
You can't handle the truth.
Oh, we think you can. Welcome to the Naked Truth Report with your host, truth warrior and mythbuster Kathleen Wells. The place where we distinguish fact from fiction, where data is used to drive points home, and where Kathleen takes the position that Democrats and black politicians have destroyed black America. Welcome to the Naked Truth Report. Now, your host, Kathleen Wells.
Hi, Truth Warriors. Welcome to the Naked Truth Report. It's me, Kathleen Wells, and let's see, where does one begin? It's just is it worth talking about? I gotta talk because I'm on the radio, but it's so obvious that it's like, I don't even want to talk about it. I mean, it's just so ridiculous. For instance, the press conference. First, I want to say that I watched what did I watch? I watched John Adams again. I wanted to see it again. I don't know why, because I wanted to think about how history is retold to the American people. Yeah. I wanted to think about that. And then I watched yesterday the documentary on Tina Turner. Somehow I want to relate on HBO, Tina Turner to John Adams. I want to relate those two. I guess the way I can relate those two is by saying you never know how things are going to play out. You never know what's coming. You can't foresee or anticipate exactly how things will play out. So we don't, as I said before, it isn't necessarily a bad thing that Trump is not president again, because we don't know how things are going to play out exactly, what will come in the next 4 years, how things will manifest. Like I said, life is like a Persian rug that is rolled up, and then you unroll it, and you see a pattern. So we don't know. For instance, during the press conference, Biden said that Kamala Harris would be in charge of the border. 2 days later, she says, oh, no, I'm not. So, you never know what's going on. One thing is for sure, why didn't Biden inform Kamala before he made that announcement to the public in the press conference? Why didn't he inform her that she was going to be in charge of the border? I don't know, but he didn't. So it gives you the impression that the communication isn't necessarily good in the White House. You heard rumors that the communication wasn't good in the White House with Trump. Whether or not that was true, Trump would come out and give a stellar performance in his press conference, off the cuff, State of the Union. He was just fantastic. His energy level, everything about Trump, America first, Americans loved. Most Americans, yes, most Americans that vote, most Americans that think like adults loved Trump. Those that don't think like adults, those that think with their emotions, hated Trump. Yes. Let me read this quote. I want to read this quote that I read from Neil Postman. He wrote this in 1984, and it's a part of the title. It's Amusing Ourselves to Death. Yes, amusing ourselves to death. Neil Postman says addiction to media and entertainment that is driven by profit and not substance prevents people from even thinking like adults. For a society to remain free, its citizens must be virtuous, must be both virtuous and knowledgeable. Never before has America been so inundated with information and so bereft of wisdom, logic, reason, sequence, and rules of contradiction have been abandoned for mere entertainment. Tyrants always rely on censorship, especially when the masses do not know the difference between serious discourse and entertainment. This was written by Postman, P-O-S-T-M-A-N, Neil Postman, in Amusing Ourselves to Death in 1984. Yes. Subsequent to George Orwell's 1984, and around the time that Brave New World was written by Aldous Huxley. So we are in the throes of what he talked about, are we not? We're in the midst, we are saturated with entertainment, from big tech to everything is entertainment. Twitter, everything is to be taken seriously on Twitter. Can you imagine that they take comments on seriously from Twitter? Anything on Twitter is to be taken seriously. Can you imagine? People get canceled because of what they've tweeted. That's how superficial and shallow we've become as a society. The culture, the American culture. People get censored. People get canceled because of something they've written on Facebook. Yes, this is how shallow we've become. And this is why, yes, and I was reading an article in the, 1700s, in the 18th century, when John Adams was, the second president, American citizens, in fact, I think the article was Thomas Paine's Common Sense. I just read this, I'm paraphrasing. But Thomas Paine's Common Sense sold back in the 18th century what would be equivalent to 20 million copies today. I think 400,000 Americans read Thomas Paine's Common Sense. Since Americans back in the 18th century did not have television to entertain them, they read. Many Americans were able to read. Many Americans, we always hear about how most Americans didn't read. I guess that's true, but many Americans did read. I guess the ones who were educated, obviously. But our discourse in America is just not as serious. We're not as educated. It's very disturbing. And the media is the main reason why everything is reduced down to a soundbite or not a soundbite, but just a brief comment on something, and that is the truth. For instance, Obama said that the filibuster is a remnant of the Jim Crow era. So one of the reporters, I think she was with ABC or CBS, she literally asked Biden during the press conference, well, since the filibuster, maybe she did say Obama, since the filibuster is a remnant of Jim Crow, as if that's a definitive statement, if that's true, you see? And no one says, well, why, Biden just took it and rolled with it. Yes, we must, why would it be true that the filibuster is a remnant of Jim Crow? In fact, I turned on just briefly to MSNBC just to hear because I knew that Maria Bartiromo was talking about the crisis at the border. And I knew that Democrats are refusing to acknowledge that there's a crisis at the border. So I turned on MSNBC quickly just to see what they were talking about. And Jonathan Capehart was talking about the filibuster being racist. Where does that come from? See, there's no evidence of that. Democrats just simply Democrats to the left and the media, they're all one and the same. Democrats and the media are one and the same. They make a declaratory statement and say it as if it's the truth. Where's the evidence that the filibuster is racist? In fact, in 2020, the report says that Democrats used the filibuster 235 times and Republicans used it once. So the Democrats used a racist instrument 235 times, therefore the Democrats are racist, right? Wouldn't that be true? So there's no more logic, you cannot reason with this party. You cannot reason with, I think that's something that Dennis Prager said. It's people who make their conclusions based on irrationality and false premises cannot be reasoned with. You cannot reason them, and you cannot use the truth or logic to get them to understand or embrace what you're trying to convey. Because they're basing their understanding, they're basing their conclusions rather on false premises or irrationality. It makes you can't reach them. And this is what I was trying to tell people on Facebook, why I no longer desire to be on Facebook. For years, at least 4 years, we were discussing the legitimacy, the truth about Trump's policies. We were trying to get through to people about why Trump was good for America. The policies are why. We weren't, and Trump only received 4% of black women voting for him. Only 4%. That's disturbing. That's disturbing to me as a black woman, yes. Then I watch on OWN, the media shapes the culture. Yes, the media is a reflection of the culture and shapes the culture. Yes, this is why going back to the Postman quote about how the media is entertainment has taken the place of logic and reason and common sense is relevant. This is why his thesis is relevant, pertinent today, more pertinent today than ever. Because when you watch the media, when you watch OWN TV, you see people acting like the media. Does that act? They believe that the media, the television shows, are the truth. So, for instance, on the show Love and Marriage, it's on OWN TV. Love and Marriage hit Huntsville. So they're located in Huntsville, Alabama. Now, there are 4 couples, I think 3 or 4 couples. Yeah, 3 couples. And this one couple, they keep pushing this, that black women are bosses, okay? This is this whole feminist thing. There's another show on OWN called Bell Collective, I think. We're bosses. Black women are the boss. In other words, we're wearing the pants. We're out in the streets making it happen. Black women, right? So one woman is getting divorced. She has 4 children. Her name is Melody Holt. They call her Mel. And she's getting divorced from Martell, her husband, because Martell is having an affair on her. In fact, he's having a baby by one of the women he's having an affair with. He's had an affair with another woman for 5 years. Now, when I looked, I'm not on Twitter anymore, but I looked on Twitter to see the women. These are young black women, just because young black women watch this show like nobody's business. Young black women watch TV. They watch Bell Collective. They watch Love and Marriage and Huntsville. They watch, what is the other show? What is that other show? I can't remember. They watch all these shows. Young black women watch they don't have husbands, so they're watching TV. So they're watching all these shows on OWN about black women being bosses, okay? Now, this is what Kevin Samuels, you guys should look him up on YouTube, Kevin Samuels, because he's letting black folks know, listen, this whole feminist business, he doesn't put it in political terms. He puts it in cultural terms or just terms of societal. You're getting women wanting to get married, okay? If you're a woman that wants to be in a relationship with a man, you should not be an alpha female. You should not be masculine energy. You should not be a boss, okay? Now, there are some women, like maybe Oprah, who want to be a boss. But the majority of women, and this is something that Dennis Prager, when you focus on the exceptions, you're not wise. The rule is what goes. The rule is what is right. The rule is what is good. So the rule is most black women, most women, no matter their color, do not want to be a boss. Okay? They don't want to be out in the streets, getting in the car, getting out of the car every day, fighting with people, trying to negotiate this, trying to make that happen, trying to make this happen. The world, this is why feminism is wrong. The world, the external world, things externalized. The streets are for men. Now, some women will say, well, that's very sexist because Oprah is an example of a boss. But she is not the rule. She is the exception. She may be even a lesbian. But most women are not lesbians. Most women want to get married, want to have children, want to raise a family. That's the norm, no matter their color. That's the normal thing that women want to do. It's our nature. We'd rather bake cookies, make pies, than change a tire. That is our nature. Okay? When you got long fingernails, you don't want to be changing a tire. You see, the women wear their fingernails sharp now. Like, they look like, I don't even want to get into what they look like. But the point that I'm trying to make is that the media, with these TV shows that are trying to convince women that their bosses is wrong. It's the exception. It's the exception. It's not the rule that the average woman wants to be a boss. Now, the other thing I want to discuss is that these two young teenage girls, they're preteens. I think they were 12 and 13 or 13 or 14 in D.C. That went viral. Did you see that news? These two young black girls murdered an Uber Eats driver. And now that's very masculine energy to be resorting to violence at 13 years old. When I was 13, I was like, what? Still jumping rope, maybe. Maybe not. Maybe not. But I wasn't thinking about killing someone at 13 years old. I guess they were going to rob them. I guess they were trying to rob this Uber Eats deliverer who happened to be Asian, talking about anti-Asian racism, which doesn't exist. Maybe there are isolated incidents, but we don't know if these people, Asians who are being attacked because of their race or not. I don't know. I haven't read about it. I can't even watch the news that much anymore. That's how I end up watching the documentary on John Adams and Tina Turner, because I can't watch the news, okay, because it's just full of lies. It's not the truth, like the press conference. So these young girls think that it's kosher. Somehow they got in their mind that it was like being a boss, okay, at 13 years old, to be violent. It's being a boss. Let me be a boss and rob this guy who's delivering our food so we can get free food or we can get some money, right? I'm being a boss. They must have got that from OWN TV, where Oprah's a boss, right? I mean, where else would women get that idea at 13 to rob an Uber Eats deliverer? Where would you get that notion? Where would you even get that idea? Oh, I'm a boss. I'm out in these streets. So the whole thing is messed up, okay? And we're saying, but we just, you know what? My attitude right now, you never know what's coming. The fact that Kamala Harris told, hey, no, Joe, I'm not going to the border. That's another thing. They deny, and I said this last week, they deny that there's a crisis at the border. So what do? They don't even go to the border. The border is the illegal aliens. We're up to 18,000 now, unaccompanied minors. So last week I said it was almost 9,000. So we've doubled. It was almost 10,000 last week. We've doubled in a week of how many unaccompanied minors have now crossed the border. And the other thing is this. Biden won't even give the press pool access to the, what are they? They're not called cages anymore. They call them reception centers. You see how we allow the left to control, and the media to control the narrative. Do you see? This is a problem. I want to read another quote. Let me see if I have it. Where is it? I want to read another quote that I have right here. Let me put on my glasses. This is a good quote. Given that the left, this is a quote by Gregory Parker. Given that the left and the Democrats control all the major institutions in America, press, schools, colleges, large municipal governments, tech firms, and I want to add media and Hollywood. I added media and Hollywood. Given that the left controls those, it is undoubtedly undoubtedly ignorant for those same Democrats to argue that there is systematic institutional racism as it maintains that they are the racists and their followers are the problem. Now, if you're a logical person, you get that, right? But even saying this to the left, it doesn't make, saying this to people who do not use rationality to draw their conclusions, who do not base their conclusions on premises that are the truth, but yet base their conclusions on premises that are false. It makes no sense to even say anything to them that is logical or rational. You will never reach them. And this, I hope all of us get off of social media. We must strike because it's overtaking everything. Let them have, you cannot convince them. People tell me, "Oh, get off of. You shouldn't leave Facebook because you're going to you're speaking to the choir. You're speaking to the choir. You will not convince." We spent 4 years on Facebook trying to convince these people that Trump was right because of his policies, American First policies, and only 4% of black women. And this is another thing I want to say. These shows, there's another show. What is that show called where they're in Louisiana and it's on OWN and it's a family and their parents have died and they have a farm. I can't think of the name of that show. It's on OWN. And then there's another show that I saw where I want to say this. These shows, they bring up the thing that's in the news. They bring up the George Floyd death as if that's oh my God. They bring up Black Lives Matter in these shows. These TV shows are being watched by young black women where they're being told to be bosses, where they're being told to use their masculine energy. They're bringing up George Floyd's death. They're bringing up Black Lives Matter. They bring it up on the reality shows. You see how the media is infiltrating the minds of young black people through the TV, okay? These folks think that the TV is the truth. They think the TV is reality. They don't realize it's it's doctored. It's propaganda. It's a mere narrative. It's something that's being pushed that isn't necessarily true. They just say a conclusionary statement like Black Lives Matter. We're for Black Lives Matter. Oh, George Floyd. Oh my God, there's so much racism because of George Floyd's death. That's one instance. They don't go into depth or detail as to George Floyd's death, okay? They don't go into the full video that was exposed later as to what was going down when he was dealing with the police officer. They don't go into that. They just say, oh my God, poor George Floyd was killed by that white cop, you see? So it's the television is controlling the children, the young adults. The television, because they believe what they see on TV is the reality. They think this is real, how the real world works, like TV, what they see on TV. This is what they believe, these young people. They have no other information to grab onto except TV information. And they're feeding them lies, propaganda. This is a problem. This is a problem. They don't they don't read anything. They don't go into any analysis, any in-depth. They don't know any history. History is not even relevant. They don't know any history. All they know, I think I saw recently where Black Lives Matter activists put some feces on a statue of Abraham Lincoln. Now, Abraham Lincoln, if you knew, and I talked about this early when I started the radio show because I listened to his speech at Gettysburg. I think he delivered that speech during his second inaugural. And he talked about the purpose of the Civil War was to defeat slavery. He said it explicitly in that speech. So why would a Black Lives Matter person put feces on Abraham Lincoln? Why? And the historians aren't doing any favors to the American people either. And that's one of the things that Biden is concerned about, his legacy. So Biden has he's been in politics his whole life. What, 47, 48 years? He's never ran a business. He's never done anything except politics. I think he got in at 29 or something like that. Now we know that these politicians are corrupt. So what does Biden know about anything? He's made millions off of his corruption with other countries, if not billions. I don't know how much he's worth now, him and his wife, with the help of their son Hunter. But we know they were doing some shenanigans with the Chinese, which was censored during the 2020 election. Was it not? We couldn't hear about it. Now this other thing I want to talk about when I come back from the break is this woman, Yamachi Alcindor. She's a Haitian American. I think she's a first-generation American. And just like this other woman, what's her name? The woman who's on MS, Joy Ann Reid. She's a first-generation American. These people, I have 30 seconds. These women speak as if they represent they're spearheading, or they represent they represent Black America. And they're just first-generation Americans. They talk about how everything is racism. This goes back to what I was saying about how, I forgot what I was going to say. Anyway, there's my music. I'll come back after the break. We'll finish it after the break. Yamiche Alcindor. She works for the PBS. This is the Naked Truth Report. I'm your host, Kathleen Wells. We'll be right back.
That kind of an effort and that kind of commitment made. So I thank all of you, those of you who are here. Mayor Yorty has just sent me a message that we've been here too long already. So my thanks to all of you, and now it's on to Chicago, and let's win there. Thank you.
The Robert Kennedy assassination doesn't get as much play as President Kennedy's, yet it is more complex, insidious than his brother's murder. Reading in the LAPD investigation files, particularly the autopsy report, a gun was pressed against the back of Senator Kennedy's suit coat and 2 bullets fired. Another contact wound, a bullet to the back of his head with a gun muzzle 1 inch behind the right ear. Yet, witness reports and testimony has Sirhan, the accused assassin, in front of Kennedy and a few feet away. Doesn't match. Carl Euchre, a hotel maitre d', was designated to lead Kennedy through the Ambassador Hotel the night of the Democratic primary election in California. Walking through the pantry, Kennedy stopped to shake hands. Carl looked across the room to his boss, Uno Timonson, waiting at the exit door and signaling to Carl to hurry up. Carl took Kennedy's hand and resumed walking when a young man appeared before Carl, intent on approaching Kennedy. Carl thought he was going to try and shake Kennedy's hand and blocked the young man, pressing him against a warming table so Kennedy could pass by unmolested. The young man was Sirhan, who took out a gun and fired 2 shots around Carl, attempting to hit Kennedy. So it was with great anticipation that I was looking forward to interviewing Frank Burns, Jr., a lawyer and friend of Robert Kennedy, who was in the pantry during the shooting. Mr. Burns worked for RFK when he was the Attorney General, and a Kennedy confidant was in the 5th floor suites with Kennedy waiting for the election results. He was on stage when Robert Kennedy gave his victory speech, his last speech. Mr. Burns told me he had just caught up with a senator in the pantry and was about to say, "Look, pal, you're going the wrong way. You're supposed to go the opposite direction," when the shots were fired. He rushed forward and tackled Sirhan by the waist. He told me they danced around for what seemed a long time before he could wrestle Sirhan onto a warming table. I asked Mr. Burns if he noticed anyone approaching Senator Kennedy from behind, just before the shots or during. An elephant could have been standing behind Bob. My concentration was on Sirhan. We reenacted the shooting with me standing in for RFK, and I noticed where Mr. Burns had been standing initially and what his movements were afterwards. Walking back towards me, his eyes blazing, he said, "Sirhan did not kill Bob." At the trial on the witness stand, no one, not the assistant DA nor the defense, questioned him about distance. It was only some time later when he learned of the details of the autopsy report, he realized Sirhan had not shot RFK. After all these years, still bitter and furious, his friend was murdered, and the government got away with it. I'm Michael Calder, the author of JFK versus CIA, and how you think things are ain't necessarily so. If you want to know about the first coup, pick up my book, JFK versus CIA, available at barnesandnoble.com and at your independent bookstores.
Yes, pick up JFK versus CIA by Michael Calder at your independent bookstores. So, remember I was telling you about the two young girls? Let's see, one was 13 and the other one was 15. They're bosses, right? They got that from OWN network, from TV. Black women are bosses. So the far left D.C. mayor, Muriel Bowser, shamed the Uber Eats driver who was murdered by two teenage girls for not taking the proper precautions to prevent auto theft. Two young teenage girls were charged with felony murder after killing a man in D.C. in broad daylight during an armed carjacking. Can you imagine a 13-year-old, a 15-year-old girl carjacking? Can you imagine? Instead of fleeing the scene after the car crashed and rolled on its side, one of the girls began looking for her cell phone that was in the vehicle while walking nonchalantly past their victim's body. The girls, both black, are only 13 and 15 years old. Their Pakistani victim, Muhammad Anwar, 66, of Springfield, Virginia, was driving for Uber Eats when the girls attempted to steal his car and tase him. Can you imagine? 13 years old? A girl. You're a teenager. You're barely a teenager. You're just 13, you're just getting into your teens. And you're stealing someone's car. Can you imagine? A girl? Oh, yeah, black women are bosses now. That's right. We're out in these streets being bosses. That's what they show us on OWN, on not Married to Medicine, but that's another show. Those women are bosses too. And also, what was the other show I was mentioning? Love and Marriage, Huntsville, and Bell Collective. Those women, they're bosses. They're out in the streets bossing. Okay? That's why 13-year-old black girls are now carjacking folks. Can you imagine? Anyway, why don't I take a call now from, let's see, Jim in Huntington Beach. Welcome to the Naked Truth Report, Jim.
Hello, Kathleen. Hi. How
Hi.
are you? I was going to make a comment, but I was listening to Mr. Calder's comment, and it took me back to that day, and I remember I cried for years, and I think that they weren't perfect people, but they were not like the current leaders, including in their own party today, at all. And Robert Kennedy, his position on welfare and everything else was nothing like Biden. And he was for the Second Amendment and against abortion. The two of them had their flaws, I say, but we used to have better leaders in this country, And Barry Goldwater was a good friend of both of them, and he wrote about them in his book. And even Nixon made some compliments about them too. So anyway, something was lost there, that's for sure. What I see is a coup in America where our society was never perfect. We all agree there were injustices and things that shouldn't have been, but we did make social progress. But you and I are seeing things that we never would have dreamed years ago. Think back to when you were a kid. What would the adults back then have said in your life, your parents or grandparents, Kathleen, if somebody had said, you see that Walter Cronkite doing the news? One day we're not going to have calm broadcasters like that. We're going to have broadcasters acting unprofessional and hysterical and making, all kinds of wild charges without sticking to the facts. And if you looked at all the TV shows that you grew up with, the detective shows, the westerns, and you looked at some of the great shows that came along with the good writing, and you look at the garbage now, and then you look at the TV shows where you had from The Rifleman to 227 to Silver Spoons and Hazel and, and Good Times, where you had, the adult, figures on the shows teaching good values to the kids. And
I was even watching. I even watched Mayberry RFD. I forget what is it called, Mayberry. And there's like a more.
Griffith show.
It was like the Andy Griffith Show. There was like a more. I watched it recently just to get a feel of what it was like, and there was like a moral theme. There was always a message to be delivered.
Yes, there was. And then there were, and as the years went by, there were a lot of producers like Sheldon Lennon and others who integrated TV, and you had good role models of actors who were black, Hispanic, and Asian. So they were trying to, have a good, show. And there's plenty of TV shows I can think of back then, including, Rawhide and others, where they integrated those casts and so on. And there was good stories, and there was an attempt to show people as human beings, and not be playing to these stereotypes. But we're living in and the other thing too is, when you look at that whole thing with Carney B, it was disgraceful. Okay. What did you ever?
I didn't watch it, but they said I heard it was just. I didn't watch it, but I heard it was lauded as good. Oh my gosh, she's so fantastic. This was disgusting. Okay.
Well, because you see, here's the difference. The producers years ago, like Greg Garrison, who produced Dean Martin's Variety Hour and Roast and Dinah Shore, he talked about this in recent years, that they would never have give green light at the garbage that's on the air now, and they didn't need anybody to censor them because they were raised up by their parents and grandparents to put your best foot forward and to put a good product out and not to lower it down. Now you have the censoring. What are they going to do next? Censor Rodney Dangerfield or Red Fox or
Right.
Dean Martin or all these funny men and women who came along. And look at the entertainers we used to have, from Frank Sinatra, Sammy Davis Jr., Elvis Presley, Ray Charles, Motown, Dinah Shore. None of those performers and more that I could mention that I haven't would never have gone on stage and acted like this. And I've interacted with some of the people from that generation, some of the actors and actresses that worked in the industry, and they're still alive, and they're disgusted by this.
Yeah.
They said, I asked Rita Moreno, I said, what do you think? She goes, I hate this.
Right.
She goes, we weren't raised up like this.
Okay, Jim, thanks for calling. Okay, now I have a lot of calls. Let me take a call now from George. Welcome to the Naked Truth Report.
Thank you, Kathleen. I just wanted to start out by thanking you very strongly for, your opening, putting out that message that, these people don't care about intellect. That's why 2 + 2 never equals 4, because that's racist. It equals something. So, and I'm glad that you called out a couple of the mavens of this garbage, this Yamiche Alcindor and Joy Reid. I tell you,
they're both first-generation Americans, and yet
they both are like cherry tomatoes on top of a celery stick. That's what they got for heads, and so it looks good when you're wanting a salad, you see. And so that thing that you brought up about these people seeing television and identifying with the characters, and they think it's true.
That they think that's life.
I know. And I remember one time, I won't say what city or anything, but there's this policeman. Oh, he got ribbed for years, He was watching that Green Berets movie with John Wayne, because he was a big John Wayne fan.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was cleaning his service, firearm. And so when he did that, he would keep a 45 caliber, government model, this pistol, the standard Army pistol, and so all of a sudden there's on television, he's watching it, and there's this Viet Cong guy sneaking up on John Wayne, and he yells out, "Look out, Duke!" And he goes, boom, 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 and he puts 3 shots into his television. And he blew it up, and his wife wouldn't let him clean his guns in the house anymore after that. Good thing, to get onto it, because we know the truth is different. If Barack Obama said, you could tell a racist by how much money's in his pocket. He's going to have exactly 69 cents, $6.66, the devil, the Antichrist, or whatever. And people are going to believe it. Nobody's going to check anything. And one thing that nobody's ever said anything about, how about that Southern accent? How about that? Are you going to listen to me? I'm telling you now, this is the way. I'm telling you, the Lord. And see, he's like doing this preaching rhythm in this hacked up Southern accent.
Who was doing the Southern accent?
Of Barack Obama.
Oh, I don't remember him doing it.
Oh, no, he's doing that in all these speeches. But you remember what Joe Biden said about him?
Right.
Oh, this guy is clean, and he's so good looking, and the way he talks, he doesn't sound like a N-word, see?
Yeah.
And,
okay, I got a lot of calls. Let me take another call, George. Thanks for calling in. Angela, welcome to the Naked Truth Report.
Hi, Kathleen.
Hi.
I wanted to talk about the border a little bit. That guy, totally Barack Obama, got him. I mean, he's totally not scary, but he's just irritating when he does that because he's not as good as T.D. Jakes, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, I wanted to talk about the border and why I believe the press isn't being allowed to cover this at all, or just saying they're not covering it, because the parents, I think, are being coaxed into sending. You notice there's all these children without their parents,
right?
So there's a lot of separation of families going on before the trip even starts, which is interesting. Like who is convincing these parents
to
separate them? But because I don't think they want the parents to be able to watch on television. I mean, if they do have a TV, and they probably have access to one, on the news to see how the children are being treated, because then they'll go, we were lied to. It was supposed to be better.
Oh, I don't know.
No, so that's what I'm thinking about that.
Well, I was thinking that they just don't want the American people to see it because the hypocrisy, because I saw kids living, some images did seep out, and there were children under the freeway sleeping.
Well, I think everybody knows what's going on. I mean, even kids being, I think, train ride to Virginia or something. I heard that was happening. I heard that on the radio, like they were going to, I don't know if Joe Biden said it or somebody said it.
And they're getting taxpayer airplane rides. And one young girl, 12 years old, was drowned crossing the Rio Grande. And what parent would send their kid alone?
Exactly.
I don't get that.
Separating families.
Yeah, I don't get that. Something's going on that's deeper than what we know. Thanks, for Angela. I got a lot of calls. Let me take a call now from Raul. Welcome to the Naked Truth Report.
Oh, hi, Kathleen. Thanks for taking my call. I noticed you were playing some audio of Bob Kennedy at the Ambassador Hotel. Were you discussing the assassination?
Mm-hmm.
Well, what's interesting about that is that for some reason, Kennedy had 3 bodyguards with him at all times. He had Bill Barry, ex-FBI guy, right? He had Rayford Johnson and Rosie Greer. But something happened on that podium when he left the stage. He did turn around at some point, I think, when he parted the curtain. He told Bill Barry, you look after Ethel. So Bill Barry stayed behind with Roosevelt Greer, and the maitre d' of the hotel was leading Kennedy into the kitchen. And I don't know where the hell Rayford Johnson was. So these 3 men were not with Bobby Kennedy when he walked into that pantry. Now, there was a security guard everybody knows about now. His name is Stan Eugene Caesar, who had a loaded pistol, and he grabbed Kennedy by the elbow as he walked into the kitchen. It was really spooky, and he started pushing people back and making way for Kennedy to go through there. And then Kennedy broke free and started shaking hands with, he shook hands with Juan Romero, and the last one he shook hands with Jesus Perez. And then the maitre d' grabbed Kennedy by the wrist. And Mr. Kennedy, we got to go now. So as he started moving along, Sirhan came off the tray stack and pulled his gun out and said, Kennedy, you son of a bitch, and he started shooting, right? What's interesting is this guard was standing behind Kennedy somewhere. This man never testified. We didn't know about him until like 7 years later. In 1975, I discovered we didn't know about this guy until Theodore Chirac did a documentary called The Second Gun. I did not know about this guard, and he was hired in March when Bobby announced he was running for president by the 8th security guard. this place that he got hired at. Now this guy, there's a book out that they said he was connected with. He worked at Lockheed, which you need security clearance, right? And he worked under Robert Mayhew, who was involved supposedly in the plots against Castro. So you got this thing going on here now. He's trying to find out more about this guard. Now he didn't testify at the trial as a prosecutorial witness. He wasn't in the papers. So they covered up that this guy even existed. Now, what kind of power would be able to do that? Because this guy was a witness to an assassination. He fell down with Kennedy. He said he got up and he saw that the busboy was attending to him, and he got out and he went out into the back into the ballroom. And if you notice, there's a picture of the busboy holding Kennedy's head. There's a clip-on tie laying next to Kennedy's right side by his right hand, towards his right side of his body. That's his clip-on tie. It fell off when he fell down with Kennedy. There's theories that he might have grabbed him, Kennedy, as he was shooting him, and he fell down with him. He had his right arm outstretched. But he was filmed later in the hotel, this guard, and man, he looks scary-looking guy. Have you ever seen this guy?
No, I haven't. But I mean, it's interesting. We know that there is the CIA was involved. You should get the book. Have you gotten the book JFK versus the CIA by Michael?
No.
You should get that book.
I'd like to get that. Yeah.
Yeah, get that book. I suggest you get that book. We see.
Catherine, can I say one last thing real quick?
Okay.
Robert Mayhew, he was connected with Howard Hughes, because where then Eugene Caesar worked at Lockheed, right in that same building here in Burbank, there's a Hughes aircraft. So there's a connection in there with then Eugene Caesar, Robert Mayhew, and this is really it's good. There's a book out on that. If you go on Google. There's a book out. You just put in Eugene Caesar, Robert Mayhew, Maheu, and you look at that. It's very interesting because it seems that Robert Mayhew might have been the guy that that maybe ordered the hit on Kennedy. I don't know. It's really, it's really intriguing.
Okay, thanks. Okay, let me take one last call from Rick. Rick, welcome to the Naked Truth Report. Can you be real quick?
Yes. What do you think about the voting laws in Georgia, Ms. Kathleen?
Oh, listen, I believe that there was election fraud in 2020. Do you not?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm telling you, me and my wife got some mail-in votes. We didn't even request it. We went and voted in person, but they sent us ballot, and we didn't even request it.
Well, this is what they're trying to say. I think Biden said that the changes that were made to the voting laws in Georgia by the governor, was it George Kemp that made those changes? That they're racist. Yeah. They're trying to suppress the voters, and that there's a provision in there which requires them not to give water to voters standing in line. Well, I just heard on Steve Hilton's show that there's no provision in the Georgia law that prevents water from being given to people who stand in line. Listen, nothing that the Democrats say is the truth. Nothing.
You're right, and that's not there. When you go in to vote, you should bring your own water.
Well, it doesn't matter. They're lying. Things that they make listen, Democrats major in the minors. They make issues, they manufacture issues that are irrelevant and have no substance or consequence on the American people whatsoever. It's all manufactured hogwash. It makes no difference.
Roland Martin, he's been pushing it. I think he's doing a campaign on it. Matter of fact, he was interviewing, I don't know if you heard, a 21-year-old kid named King Randall. And he's been trying to get troubled black teens, teach them trades, how to shake hands and stuff. 21 years old. He even bought a school. And Roland Martin had him on the show, and he was telling Roland Martin, look, that's not my fight. I'm just trying to get, these kids, get them, to be something, So Roland Martin called him an idiot because he was thinking for himself.
Right. There's my music, George. Thanks. Rick, are you Rick in Virginia? Hi, Rick. Oh, hi. Yeah, Rick, thanks for calling in. There's my music. The Democrats lie about everything. We didn't get here today. It took decades to get where we are today. It took decades. This was building. Next week, I'm going to do something, I don't know. We'll be back next week. I'm Kathleen Wells, your host of the Naked Truth Report. Join me next week. Thanks. Bye.